It's spring, and it's time to fish. This year, TakeMeFishing.org wants everyone to experience their first catch. Whether it's the first of the day, first of the season, or first of a lifetime, show it with hashtag #FirstCatch. Adventure is waiting to be caught.
National League Central rivals go head-to-head this weekend when the Pirates face the Cubs at Wrigley.
Swing and a miss, he struck him out.
The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Greeny. Thanks for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Here's what we have for you on this Monday. Plenty of NBA playoff coverage. LeBron's big shot, him making up the new plays, the coach almost blowing it for the Cavaliers, and maybe the best postgame comment ever. Plus the thoughts of Chauncey Billups, Mark Jackson, and a whole lot more.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
This thing could not have started soon enough. The show before the show has been raucous. We are back and better than ever. Mike and Mike on a Monday. ESPN Radio and ESPN2 presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests, as always, on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Tons and tons of basketball. We got a guarantee, a full-fledged guarantee from the Stanley Cup playoffs.
You love those, yeah.
I like a guarantee.
Yeah, I know you do.
And I know you don't.
No,
so
I don't.
I thought that we would, it'll be interesting to get to that today. We got the best player on the ice guaranteeing a win in the Game 7. We got the very latest on Tom Brady. I got a little inside information for you. All that and a whole lot more on the way. Our guests, as always, I mentioned on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, your last chance this week to win a trip to the SB. So all that and more on the table.
But listen, how can you not start with what's going on in basketball, especially, you look at all the series, but especially the series with the Cavs and Chicago, just because of the way it's going. Chicago leading the whole way in Game 1. Cleveland leading the whole way in Game 2. And then you have a buzzer beater in Game 3 and Game 4. It couldn't have been any more lopsided in the first two or any closer in the last
Well,
two.
you heard them all there in the open, and a nice job by Randy putting those together. But you had buzzer beaters literally shot in the air, buzzer goes off, ball goes in, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in the NBA playoffs. That's more than we've had in the last 5 NCAA tournaments combined. So it's been sensational. But none of that is the headline. None of that is the headline. And I don't like saying this the way I have to say it, but it would be inaccurate not to state it this way. David Blatt tried as hard as he could to give that game away for the Cleveland Cavaliers yesterday, and LeBron James didn't let him. There's no other way to put it. David Blatt tried to call a timeout he did not have.
Oh, boy.
With about 7 or 8 seconds left in that game. And at whatever point that is that LeBron is bringing that ball up the floor, David Blatt is obviously the only man in the building who doesn't know he doesn't have a timeout left. They just had to use 2 of them trying to inbound a ball.
It was a timeout session, wasn't it?
It was a festival.
As they couldn't get the ball in, and it was actually after a Rose layup when he tried to call the timeout. And thank God for Tyronn Lue, the assistant coach, who pulled Blatt off the court. Blatt was on the court trying to signal a timeout. How a ref didn't see him, I have no idea, because he was on the court right down there by the refs, and Tyronn Lue pulled him off the court and saved them from giving up a technical foul, so shots and the ball.
So that obviously turns the game. And then in that final second, and we'll have to have a separate conversation for the purposes of this about the stoppage of play there to look at the monitor.
Nobody's got a timeout, but go ahead and take a little time amongst yourselves while we look at this.
Jeff Van Gundy is apoplectic on the telecast. I saw you and Jalen talking about it a little bit on Twitter as the day went on. It does actually become significant because they put time back on the clock.
Yes,
so that is meaningful.
Yes, it is.
You could solve that problem if you want to by, during that stoppage, not allowing teams to huddle. So if you're going to have a stoppage, if there are no timeouts remaining, for those of you who didn't see the end of the game, with I think it was 0.8 seconds left. LeBron goes to the basket. It's clearly fouled.
But they were letting it go, so they didn't call foul, and Chicago knocks the ball out of bounds.
It's clearly off Mirotic. I mean, the people in the worst seats at the United Center know that it's Cleveland ball.
We're starting to see this more and more. The refs just want to make sure who it went off of and then make sure of the time left on the clock. So neither team had a timeout here, but both teams had the ability to go to their bench and draw up whatever they wanted while the refs were checking this out.
So, I mean, Van Gundy was the first to say it because he's on the telecast, but everyone in America is thinking it. Here's the Cavalier team that was trying to call a timeout it didn't have, and now you've given them one.
Yeah.
So if you want to solve that problem, not to say that look, I mean, if you're allowing David Blatt to call you a play, then obviously that was almost a detriment, but LeBron James is the one who made the decision. That said,
right.
You give them a stoppage. Don't let them huddle.
Yeah,
Don't let them go over to their bench and start drawing up a play.
Now, then listen, you can work that out because how far are you letting them go?
Let's keep the players on the court.
Right. Okay, you keep them on the court, but they can stand 10 feet away from the bench where they can still do whatever they want to do. I mean, I'm with you. I think it's worthy of discussion. But as I was getting into the discussion, as Greeny said with Jalen Rose, because at first I agree with it. I said, are you kidding me? You're giving them a timeout. You got to figure a way not to do it. But at the end of the day, you know what they did? They got the clock right.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me now. It seemed LeBron would have catch this ball and would have got it off probably in 0.8. But you almost doubled the time. You went from 0.8 to 1.5 seconds.
By the way, I'm not sure he would have. When he lets that ball go, there's like 0.3 left.
So maybe not. So I guess my point is
they would have had to do something else.
They did get that right by adding the time. That was the correct thing to do if you were going to review it there. They got it right by adding the time, and that gave the Cavs another beat with LeBron with the ball. So they did get that part of it right, but the other part of it doesn't feel right when you don't have a timeout. So it'll be interesting to see how they may try and address that.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. They'll compare rates for you so you get the best deal even if it's not with Progressive, saving you time and money. Now that's Progressive. Call or click today. So, again, the headline here is David Blatt tries as hard as he can to call a timeout he doesn't have. Again, they just called consecutive timeouts on an inbounds play when they're trying to inbound the ball on the side. James Jones had to call a timeout there before they can get the ball into J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith called a timeout falling down.
Right.
They have just had this just happen in real time 1 minute earlier. Mm-hmm. So at no point in that did someone say to David Blatt, we have no timeouts left?
Oh, listen.
How does he not know they have no timeouts left?
There's no doubt about it that somebody is responsible for that to let everybody know where you are with timeouts. I actually think I saw LeBron mouth on the bench about no timeouts.
No, I think he said they have no timeouts left. The shot that we saw on the bench
was when they had no timeouts left.
Chicago had no timeouts left.
Well, when you have no timeouts, absolutely someone is on the hook to say that and make sure you have all the information, when you're on the floor.
Then he calls a play.
Yeah.
And in the timeout or the stoppage they shouldn't have gotten.
When they thought there was going to be 0.8, this was all assuming there was 0.8 left. But either way, he was calling a play that didn't have LeBron involved in shooting the ball.
He calls a play that has LeBron inbounding the ball. And as you've no doubt heard by now, LeBron said, I don't think so.
To be honest, the play that was drawn up, I scratched it. And I just told Coach, just give me the ball. We're either going to go into overtime or I'm going to win it for us. It was that simple.
Were you supposed to inbound on the original play?
I was supposed to take the ball out. And I told Coach, there's no way I'm taking the ball out unless I could shoot it over the backboard and go in. I told him to have somebody else take the ball out, give me the ball, and everybody get out the way.
Listen, you love him taking charge like that. I'm not so sure I'm in love with him, addressing all that.
But they all said it. I mean, my point is every single guy on the team, it's not just LeBron saying it.
No. I understand that completely.
So unless they had a huddle,
everybody said,
let's all keep this a secret.
Basically, unless they all got together and said, hey, let's not throw our coach under the bus on this one. Though, listen, this is also a sport we've heard many times where there's a lot of discussion that goes on, and especially with superstars. And he was not the first or the last superstar to trump a coach's play.
He was not. But I'm not sure that we've ever seen a situation where the best player in the game wasn't even eligible to catch the ball, and if nothing else, to be a decoy. I guess in that circumstance.
That without doubt is a fair question of why you having him inbounding the ball. I'm sure his thought was he could get it maybe where he wants it to go. He wasn't shooting well. The drought they went through in the third quarter, 7+ minutes without scoring a bucket, was incredible. LeBron shot horribly. LeBron has shot poorly in the last 2 games. So was that in consideration as well? The bottom line is, I know he made it, so hindsight's always 20/20. But I don't care. I wouldn't care how bad my superstar is shooting. I'd want him taking the last shot at the end of the game.
The Cavaliers scored 37 points in the second half of that game and won. Here's Brian Windhorst on the story of the play that David Blatt tried to call.
David Blatt was saved from infamy by his assistant coach, Tyronn Lue, in this game. After Derrick Rose hits the layup.
Okay, that's the one I'm calling the timeout.
Right.
I'll get to that one. Sorry, I hit the wrong one. This is the one on the last play.
The Cavs do get the ball down the court, end up getting a free timeout on a review. David Blatt gets the timeout he didn't have, and with 0.8 of a second left, draws up a play where LeBron James would inbound the ball and not be an option to take the game-winning shot. The players in the huddle saw this, and LeBron especially just scratched the play and said, no, you've got to give me the ball. You can't let me not even have a chance to shoot, especially with Kyrie Irving, who would be an option in this situation if he wasn't completely hobbled and unable to jump. So LeBron changes the play in the huddle. They go back out. The officials give him an extra 0.7 of a second for 1.5 seconds. LeBron makes a great move, faking to the basket, getting Jimmy Butler off balance to create space, and hits one of the great shots of his career, a buzzer beater, 26 years to almost to the day after Michael Jordan did it to the Cavs.
Yeah, the ELO plays talk about. So there you have just an unbelievable little sequence at the end. Unbelievable sequence. What do you make of the thing with the coach?
Well, I mean, I'm surprised. I'm surprised in that situation that you would have LeBron inbounding the ball. Again, I'm sure his thought was, at the time they were doing it with 0.8 seconds, that LeBron could make the pinpoint pass, because we know he is a great passer, make the pass. Now, I'm sure that was his thought process, maybe tied into the fact that he wasn't shooting well. But the other side of that is so true. You didn't have a full-strength Kyrie Irving. This series is a battle of attrition, which we'll get into as well. Irving did play over 40 minutes, but he had the bad foot, was 2 of 10 shooting.
He barely moved.
He's just not what he has been, but at least he's in a uniform and playing, unlike a Kevin Love or a Paul Gasol for Chicago at this point. As I said, we'll get more into that, but it's surprising to have a game on the line and the best player in the game, even though he's not having a great shooting game, being your inbounder instead of on the court, if not getting the ball, then at least being a decoy to take defenders away from somebody else.
Here's David Blatt on the timeout he tried to call.
Were you trying to call a timeout there?
Yeah, I almost blew it.
So they didn't
be honest
see
with you. Good thing. I almost, I think we called 2 or 3 timeouts there on that sideline out, and good thing they caught it, my guys.
Hold on. I think we called 2 or 3 timeouts. That's very non-specific, okay? Well, you have a certain number of timeouts. They called 2. J.R. Smith fell to the ground and called a timeout when being double-teamed. James Jones couldn't get the ball inbounds and called another one. I know that, okay? It's not my job to know that. I'm sitting on a couch 1,000 miles away watching this. He thinks they may have called 2 or 3 on the side. Look, I don't want to make a – look, they won the game. So at the end, it doesn't matter. Chris Webber hasn't lived down 30 years later the fact that he called the timeout when he was a sophomore in college.
Right.
This is the head coach of an NBA team who did not know he didn't have a timeout left. And it was real non-specific in his recollection of how many they
remember
used.
They called one before that to get to that point. So they called 3 actually right in that time frame, as Ray just pointed out to me, and he's right. But you're also – listen. He made a mistake. He flat out made a mistake. There's no question about that.
So what's the conversation if that is seen by an official? Mike Dunleavy Jr. winds up making a foul shot. The Bulls get the ball back and they win on that
game.
play.
I mean, it goes down. Listen, you mentioned about Chris Webber. I mean, this goes down as one from a coach yet. There's one, and as you go up, there's more expected of you. There's a player, there could be a player on the court having that freak out moment and doing what Chris Webber did. When you're a coach on the sideline, you're not touching the ball, you're not doing anything. You're planning everything, and you have people telling you things. He freaked out. He freaked out. He did, and he almost made one of the costliest mistakes you could make, because as we talked about, this is about the best chance that the Bulls are going to have to beat Cleveland, with Cleveland being down the way out. This is an excellent series. Who knows what this series would be if Kevin Love were completely healthy, but who knows what would happen yesterday if Paul Gasol was healthy and able to play in that game. It might be 3-1 Chicago there anyway. As I said, this is a series of attrition with J.R. missing the first 2 games as well from the suspension. But, yes, it'll go down as a horrifically bad play, a lot of it, and then it gets more emphasized because of basically what had been going on all year long with Blatt, and questioning would he even be the head coach had they got LeBron before Blatt was named the head coach. That would have just added to the piling on that's gone on with him.
Speaking, by the way, of hideous play, that was a pretty hideous second half. I love the NBA. I love the playoffs. I love the competitiveness of the game. But the Cavaliers scored 12 points in the third quarter. The Bulls scored 16 points in the fourth quarter. There was some just atrocious shooting in this game. And part of it, I think, is that with no love and Kyrie Irving a shell of himself, everything is falling on LeBron. J.R. Smith won that game in the fourth quarter. J.R. Smith hit a bunch of shots in the fourth quarter when they desperately needed another direction. Where did he wind up?
Yeah, well, he had 11 of his 13 points. 13. 11 of those were in the fourth quarter.
He was phenomenal.
You're right. When they needed somebody else, because Kyrie wasn't what he was, so they needed somebody else to step up. Remember, Shumpert was out of the game, too, with the groin injury. So they were, both teams are certainly playing less than full strength. But you said, 16 in the fourth quarter for the Bulls and 12 in the third for Cleveland. Go to the second quarter. The Bulls had 17 points in the second quarter. They had their cold shooting spree in the second quarter, and the Cavs did in the third. It was tough to watch. Nothing was dropping.
And without Gasol, the Bulls' front line shot 7 of 26. Joakim Noah, who I hate to say cannot throw the ball in the ocean, was 4 of 12. How many one-footers can you miss in critical spots? Yeah. Taj Gibson, 2 of 7. Mike Dunleavy, 1 of 7. So they desperately missed Pau Gasol yesterday. It's a totally different game if he's healthy, but it's a totally different game if Irving is healthy. It's a totally different series if Love is playing.
So you play with what you got.
You got. And what you get in the end is a very exciting finish and all of that, and that's well and good. And then the continuing conversation about whether or not it is unfair for a team to get a free timeout at the end the way they did.
As I said, it's really, really going to be interesting how they want to go about it, because they actually corrected the time to what it should have been. I mean, there was no doubt about that, right? There was no doubt. So do you just live with the human error and say and make the gut call and say it's Cavs ball with 0.8 seconds left? But we're getting more and more of that, of them taking their time, because we keep saying, if you're going to call the game, let's make sure we get it right. You and I both have been on that bandwagon. Okay, whether it's replays, this is the refs deciding to do it. I get it, but we have both been on the bandwagon of make sure we get it right. They got it right. And it makes a pretty big difference, 0.8 to 1.5. I'm not saying the route to getting it right is the best route in the world, but right now I don't have a better one outside of just living with what they called on the court. The human element, as they say, which we say we both hate, if we live with the human element, there may have been a different outcome there.
Yeah, to me, it's not worth giving a team an extra timeout to figure out if the clock was incorrect. To me, the question is, I have to assume they were looking at it to make sure possession was correct.
Well, there's two things. There's possession and then the clock.
I get that.
Right.
But if there was zero question about the possession, which the first second you saw a replay.
I agree with that.
Does the ends justify the means of giving the teams, and I guess, you're giving the defense a chance to huddle also.
You are.
But I think it's much more significant that you're giving the offense a chance to huddle. One way or another, that's one of the stories that comes out of it yesterday. A thrilling finish and a weekend filled with them in the NBA, and we'll get plenty of perspective this morning. Jeff Van Gundy will be live at 7:30. Mark Jackson will be in our studio a little after 9 this morning. No, he's on the phone. I'm sorry. Chauncey Billups will be in our studio at 8:30 Eastern this morning. So all of those with their Subway Fresh take, Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance, will have plenty of perspective on all of this as the morning continues. And coming up in just a moment, we're going to ask a question of you today because someone said something over the weekend that has got to go down as one of my absolute favorite somethings that have ever been said. Details in 1 minute on Mike and Mike after this word from LifeLock. Golic. A not-so-fun fact is that years ago I was a victim of identity theft, as so many have been. It took me years to get my credit restored. It was a major nuisance at minimum, and in some cases it was worse than that. And since then, I've signed up with LifeLock, which is an industry leader in identity theft protection.
Yep, their innovative LifeLock Ultimate Plus service goes beyond just monitoring ATM and credit card transactions. It provides protection for your identity, bank and retirement accounts, credit cards, even the equity in your home. Now listen, nobody can stop all identity theft. Nobody can monitor transactions at every business. But LifeLock Ultimate Plus does provide comprehensive identity theft protection so you can sleep a little easier at night. Help protect yourself with LifeLock Ultimate Plus. Visit LifeLock.com right now. Enter the promo code Mike. Save 10% on your LifeLock Ultimate Plus membership. That's promo code Mike at LifeLock.com to get our special 10% discount, LifeLock.com.
Tell you what, we mentioned J.R. Smith. He was 3 for 4 on contested threes in the game yesterday. The rest of his teammates were 1 of 12 on such shots. Contested threes, he was 3 out of 4. The rest of his team, 1 out of 12. They needed him with those fourth-quarter points yesterday. He was in the zone, brought to you by AutoZone. Get some of the money back that you put into your car. Head to AutoZone today for your free AutoZone rewards card. Let AutoZone pay you to shop. Get in the zone with AutoZone. J.R. Smith was in the zone. So was Paul Pierce with the game running down.
Top of the game, Paul Pierce, 5 seconds. Pierce with 3 seconds. Pierce left at the top of the game, shoots, bangs, scores! Banks scores! Time expires! Confetti goes off! The Wizards players mob Paul Pierce, who's laying down on the floor! And the Wizards lead the series 2-1.
All right, so obviously an unbelievable finish, as we mentioned, in a weekend filled with them. And by now you've probably seen dozens of times that shot that Paul Pierce makes. I was in a restaurant with my wife having dinner, and so I saw it on TV. The TV was on in the restaurant. And I saw that Chris Broussard is interviewing Pierce on the court. But it was not until a little bit later, because they didn't have the sound on, that I actually heard what he said.
Oh, it was fantastic.
That's one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard. This is Broussard, of course, and Paul Pierce. By now you know it.
Did you call bank? I called game.
I called game.
I called game. Listen, and to add to it, that was the last part of the interview, and I'll explain why. Doing the interview, talking about it, and then Broussard kind of threw that one in there. You know, at the end, did you call bank? And you heard him, I call game. And he walked away. I mean, Broussard probably would have asked him another question, but he said, I called game, and he walked away.
He dropped the mic.
I'm out.
He dropped the mic.
It was fantastic.
Paul Pierce dropped the mic. So it got us to thinking, where does that rank among the all-time great post-game comments? I'm not talking about in the press conference.
No. Right after the game.
On the court, on the field, on the ice. Something someone says literally in the seconds after a game has ended. So I threw up the question on Twitter. It's at ESPN Greeny. Is Paul Pierce saying I call? You're gonna retweet that? Good job. Is Paul Pierce saying I called game the greatest post-game comment of all time? And if not, what is?
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Guys, when you buy your clothes at DXL, you look good. But you feel like a rock star. So if you want to look and feel like you'll find all the brands you love, waist size 38 and up, all in one awesome store. DXL, you're looking good. Right now, select dress shirts are just $49.50 each when you buy 2 or more.
Mike and Mike.
Back and better than ever. Mike and Mike were presented by Progressive Insurance. Jeff Van Gundy in a half hour on the Subway Fish Take Hotline. He was all bent out of shape.
Yeah, he was.
At the end yesterday. And I want to ask him his take on what they could do about that.
What can you do? We'll get into that more because they got the time correction right. And at the end of the day, isn't about getting it right. We'll ask Jeff that. Maybe he has a solution for this because from as you bring up a lot, the smell test, it just doesn't look good when you don't have a timeout and all of a sudden you have probably a longer time than a timeout to set a play.
We also, the dropping the mic of Paul Pierce again, I can't listen to this enough times.
Did you call bank? I called game.
I called game. It's just so phenomenal. So the question we're asking is, in immediate post-game comments, not in the locker room afterwards, not in the clubhouse, not in the press conference, but standing right there, is that the greatest comment of all time? And we're getting a lot of great suggestions on Twitter and other places. So the really obvious ones that jumped to our mind were...
Anything's possible!
Kevin Garnett, a champion 2008 with the Celtics. Bart Scott on the field after the Jets beat the Patriots in a playoff game in Foxborough. Right. Sal Palantonio doing the interview saying, we'll see you in Pittsburgh.
Can't wait.
Just the way he said it. Can't wait.
Awesome.
It's just mean.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it was good.
We've added a few.
Yeah, we have.
Now, this one we added just for the chuckle. Mm-hmm. This was at the Pro Bowl. Peyton Manning.
I'm out of my 3rd Pro Bowl. We're talking about our idiot kicker who got liquored up and ran his mouth off.
You know, that's not going to win any prizes, but we just wanted to play it.
It in fact, doesn't even belong in the genre.
No, it really doesn't.
But we thought of it and liked it.
Absolutely right.
Then some others. Boxing, some of the best ones come from boxing. We don't have permission to run all of them, but anytime you can hear this guy.
I'm the greatest thing that ever lived. I don't have a mark on my face, and I haven't not enlisted, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest.
It doesn't get better than that.
Can there be better talkers than when a boxer gets on a roll?
No.
And makes sense, and then when a boxer gets on a roll and maybe doesn't make as much sense?
Well, so there was Ali on one side, and then, of course, legendarily, Mike Tyson.
I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody that's listening. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children.
You know what? That's why you plunked down at that point $49.99 for a Mike Tyson pay-per-view. Just to get gems like that. And then hopefully see a good fight.
He used impetuous and impregnable.
He did. Did he use them correctly?
Sentence. Yeah, I think so. I mean, impregnable is certainly
impregnable.
Correct.
I think he used correctly.
Is his style
impetuous?
His style
impetuous?
Perhaps.
Okay, I guess you could define it at some point.
It isn't the word I would use to have described his style.
You're not Mike Tyson.
But that's good. The eat his children part is sort of the memorable part.
Yeah.
Richard Sherman, we don't have the permission because it was from Fox to use, when you try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're going to get.
That was something. That was something, that little interview after the game. Yeah.
I enjoyed that one very much. So keep those coming, and we'll still have some fun with that all morning long through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Celebrate spring birthdays with a smile. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN for flowers and gifts starting at $29.99. I got two things that I read this weekend that I thought made extraordinary sense about this Tom Brady mess. And I can also tell you what I'm hearing is going to be the outcome from that. We'll get to those in a moment. First, Bubba, give me a little music off the top. Off the top with us here on Mike and Mike with your thoughts on the different stories around the world of sports. It begins, of course, with the Cavaliers who win Game 4 on a game-winning buzzer beater from LeBron James.
Yep, third career playoff game-winning buzzer beater for LeBron James. That matches the amount that Michael Jordan had in his career as well.
What else do we have off the top? After setting a playoff record with 28 free throw attempts in the first half, DeAndre Jordan shoots a total of 34 foul shots in the game yesterday. The Clippers go on to blow out the Rockets in the second half, and thank goodness for it, because that was just excruciating to watch.
Tough to watch. The Clippers' 33-point win was the second largest in franchise playoff history. They're the first team since the 0-1 Lakers to win back-to-back games in a single series by 25 or more points.
Rangers win to force a Game 7 against the Capitals. Now, Alex Ovechkin is guaranteeing a win for Washington, but he is certainly bucking history in a variety of ways by doing so.
Well, the Rangers have never lost a home Game 7. They're 6-0. The Capitals have never won a Game 7 on the road. They're 0-4. And for the Rangers, it's still amazing. They played 11 games this postseason, every single one of them decided by one goal. It's really, really incredible.
And it goes back to the last two games of their playoff run last year as well, when they wound up losing against the Kings. Every game they play is a thriller to the finish. Speaking of which, Ricky Fowler wins the Players in a three-man playoff.
Well, it was really incredible what Ricky did. 6 under the last 6 holes, and he and Sergio Garcia and Kevin Kisner ends up playing 16, 17, 18. They play them all. It wasn't sudden death, so they played all three. You get the aggregate score. Sergio Garcia was knocked out of that. They went back to 17, and that's when Ricky Fowler, I mean, Kisner hit a nice shot, but Ricky put it inside of him. Kisner misses. Fowler makes it. And that's the tournament. Nice win for him.
His second win of his career, and it was on a weekend where they were all the talk was about him being deemed overrated.
That was an anonymous poll by players, by current players, and he and one other guy, I forgot who they said, were deemed the most overrated players on the tour.
I understand it. I know that it's insulting. Yeah. Here's the thing. Ricky Fowler, because of his look, because of his swag and all that kind of stuff, gets an enormous. He's a good-looking young kid.
Yeah.
And so he has gotten an amount of attention perhaps disproportionate to his accomplishments.
Yes.
So I understand why players might say that with a little bit of resentment. That said, he's a really, really good player.
Off the top.
A couple of more quickly for you. Michael Pineda, 16 strikeouts in 7 innings yesterday. He was as dominant yesterday as anyone's been yet this year.
Yep, tying the baseball record for most strikeouts in 7 or fewer innings. Only Ron Guidry, with 18 strikeouts, has more strikeouts in a game in Yankees history.
And then finally, are the Warriors in trouble? They may be. Down 2-1 in their series to Memphis. They've gone cold from the outside. All the question about whether an outside shooting team can win. Here's what they have on their side. They did not lose 3 straight games at any point this season. At any point this season. If they fall tonight, they'll be in a big-time hole. And that is Off the Top with Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance, creators of the Name Your Price tool. Choose from a range of coverage options and pick the price that works for you. All right, I read 2 things this weekend on the Tom Brady thing. And let me quickly start by telling you, everyone has their sources of information. What I'm hearing coming out of this, and again, this is not confirmed, but the sense I'm getting coming out of this is that there will be a suspension of Brady. It will be no more than 4 games, and a minimum of 1. I think more than 1 is the sense I'm getting, and it'll be announced sometime this week. This is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, we had heard that it was going to be announced sometime this week, and then whatever it is, you wonder if it gets dropped down with the appeal. So where it actually ends up.
A stone cold lead pipe lock from everyone on Brady's side that he's going to appeal it. But so has this thing been totally mishandled from the very beginning by everyone? I think pretty good arguments were made this weekend that the answer is yes. I'll read you 2 things I read. Okay. One of them suggests that this may have been completely mishandled by Tom Brady himself from the very beginning. And this was from Mike Lupica's column yesterday. And I was actually on with Mike on his show on ESPN New York on Thursday, and he said essentially this in the conversation we had. And he wrote it yesterday. He said, if Brady at the very beginning of this had said the following, this would never have been treated like the crime of the century. If he had said, listen, I put an awful lot of pressure on our equipment guys about how much or how little air I like in our game balls. And if I've put so much pressure on them that they somehow took them below the legal limit, whether I came right out and told them to or not, that's on me and I've got to wear it. They probably just got a little overzealous about what they thought I wanted them to do, so that's on me as much as it's on them. If he says that, Mike is saying, then this whole thing becomes almost nothing.
Athletes don't do that. When athletes are trying, if you believe Tom was trying to get away with something, that's like you're rumored to be on PEDs and you come out and say, you know what, yeah, I am, before it gets proven that you are. They're not going to do that. They're always going to do the mea culpa after they supposedly get found guilty of something. So, sorry, that's not going to work. Who does a preemptive? Name an adult who's done a preemptive. Name a kid who gets in trouble that does a preemptive. You don't do preemptives. It's I'm sorry after the fact, and that's only when your back is completely against the wall. We'll bring up the other guys that we brought up. We don't want to put Brady in the same name as a Lance Armstrong and a Ryan Braun, but there's degrees. I'll keep going back to it. There's some proof against you, and there's Andy Pettitte saying I did it and I'm sorry, and there's the others who will go on and throw everybody under the bus. But the bottom line is you don't preemptively do it. There's not going to be, well, this may have happened, and then you're going to get somebody to raise their hand and say, no. It didn't maybe happen. It happened because maybe then if you go on to the spiel that he thought Brady should say, it doesn't work that way. That's hoping for way too much right there.
Yeah, but it would have. Well, it would have provided.
Sure, it would.
I guess my question to you is, would that have provided a finish to this that would have ended immediately with a minor fine, and then the whole world would have gone about their business?
Yes, but it's unrealistic to think that could have been a realistic finish, in my opinion.
Well, if it was the truth, then it might have been the business, the right way to end it. Okay. The question is, maybe it isn't what happened, but it would have maybe it would have not allowed this to turn into what it's turned into, which brings us to what Mike Reese wrote.
Okay.
Mike Reese covers the Patriots for us and for ESPNBoston.com and for ESPN.com and NFL Nation and everything else. So here's what he wrote. Over the last 3 days, I've digested the 243-page Wells report, reading it multiple times. And with its bias and lack of fairness in certain areas, I truly can't believe what the commissioner has done to the legacy and reputation of one of the greatest quarterbacks and ambassadors in the history of the game, all over air pressure on a football without definitive proof he had anything to do with it. Why do I think this has been made to a bigger deal than it is? I go back to a game between the Vikings and Panthers from November, with teams illegally heating footballs on the sideline, right? Illegally heating footballs. A cold game, and they were going over to the sideline. They were sort of putting them up against
you. Have air, whatever way a team can heat up the sideline, be it by the benches or sometimes they have the little engine-type looking things there. Whatever way it was, these teams warmed up the footballs with those heaters.
Illegally.
Yes.
He says, I go back to that, and I wonder how we got to the point with the Patriots and underinflated footballs. I go back to the Chargers going back to the Vikings and Panthers. Do you know what the outcome of that was? Do you know what the league did?
They were told to stop doing it.
They got a warning.
Yeah, they were told to stop doing it.
They got a warning.
Yeah, I remember that.
Guys, don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. Next, I go back to the Chargers using an illegal sticky substance on towels in 2012. An illegal sticky substance. Going back to the sort of stuff you were talking about. Do you know what they got?
Did they get a fine or they get a warning?
They got fined $25,000.
Okay.
And I likewise wonder how we got to this point with the Patriots and underinflated footballs. Put the three situations together, and only one requires a full-fledged investigation that will cost owners millions of dollars. In the interest of fairness, what am I missing? Add in comments from Aaron Rodgers about his preference for overinflated footballs and a New York Times story that he attaches on Eli Manning and his football preparation, and it seems we've gone off the rails here. I hope my viewpoint, Mike writes, on Goodell's poor handling of the situation isn't interpreted as letting the Patriots off the hook. From the moment the story broke, my opinion was the team should be held accountable if all football air pressure measurements were done correctly and science wasn't a factor. The Wells report brings to light some important details as it naturally raises suspicions that the locker room attendant, who at one point referred to himself as the deflator, took the footballs without consent before the game, had them locked in a bathroom for a minute 40 seconds. That can't happen. If we're focusing on fairness, I think even Patriots followers would acknowledge that action alone leaves the team vulnerable to some level of punishment. But how we got from there to the possibility that Brady will be suspended is still hard for me to grasp.
All right. So my thought on that is, and as far as what they did, listen, I said it last week. I kept bringing up the silicone on the jerseys or Jerry Rice spraying stick-em on his hands, or these other two situations here, putting the stick-em on a towel for San Diego and heating up the balls on the sideline. I look at these as little things you tried to get away with and you didn't. You got caught. You got busted. The rule actually says $25,000, right, for altering equipment, which is what San Diego got.
Right.
They altered a towel with stick-em. They got $25,000. That's how I see all this stuff. You go to the line and you cross the line a little bit, and when you get caught, you say, yep, try to get away with it. You know, get your hand slapped with $25,000 or a warning in this case. That's what I think of this. But from the other side of it, okay, that's what I think of it. Now run the league, okay? Mm-hmm. Now you're running the league. And as Bill Polian pointed out when I brought up my other transgressions type situations of what has gone into this one, this is a little more stealth, right, than 5-0 linemen standing in the showers and covering their eyes as they're getting sprayed, than, you know, Jerry Rice spraying his hands, than a San Diego Charger towel getting sprayed with stickum, or warming up footballs on the sideline. This required a little more, did it not? It required the balls to be inspected, the balls to be alone for about a minute and 40 seconds, and then deflated in that amount of time so that there was a little more stealthness to it. I'll keep using that word. So from the league side of it, to me, I've already given you my opinion, what I think. I don't think it's that big a deal. But to the league now, do you have to step in at some point and say, okay, all right, we feel you altered, or at least this report says we believe that things were altered. Do we have to come down a little harder because there was a little more involved in this plan to do it? Do we need to start coming down harder since we've had maybe these other things, and you finally say, okay, you know what, if teams are going to keep doing this, we got to start putting down our foot a little more, that maybe our rule of just $25,000 for doing it is not enough, and we have to start enforcing a little bit tougher. Could they possibly be thinking that? I think so. And also, I completely agree with the fact that if this were a losing team last year with a quarterback that we barely knew, that it wouldn't be as big a deal. So it was made to be a bigger deal because of the Patriots' history, because it is the Patriots, because it is Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. So it was blown out of proportion a bit. To me, I don't care. It's not that big a deal to me. But if I'm the league and you start seeing some of these things add up and there's a little more involved in planning to this, for the league to say, you know what, we may need to stamp our foot down a little more and maybe, you know, put a stop to this so teams don't keep trying to do it.
I guess.
Now, does it mean this whole 103 days of an independent person giving a report, or the league just kind of doing their own investigation, taking a few weeks and saying, all right, we found there was some shenanigans going on here. You're going to get hammered. You know, even if you want to raise the fine from $25,000 to $200,000, whatever, make it look like, you know what, enough of this stuff. Enough of this stuff. Do I think it went too far with an independent investigation that took 103 days? Yeah, I do. I definitely do. I absolutely do, because I think you try and pull something off, you don't get away with it. I'm sure everybody's screaming, Golic doesn't mind if you cheat. No, if you get caught, you should pay a price. I completely agree with that. I am absolutely in agreement with that when you know you're breaking a rule. If you get caught, okay, did it. You know, I have to accept whatever happens to me now. Was there a little bit too much in this? It felt like there was a little bit too much with this, and it felt like there was a little bit too much with this because of who the team and who the people involved were.
Basically, what we're seeing here is letting a little air out of the football, turning into what will be viewed by some as like the destruction of the reputation of a guy who otherwise might be the greatest player ever.
Anytime you associate the word gate now, we've got Spygate, we've got Bountygate, we've got Deflategate.
We got a gate.
We get gates. When you get gates, those things stick with you. Whether they should or not, they stick with you. Whether it's fair or not at times, they stick with you. So, yeah, I mean, there are those side of it, especially the Tom Brady fans that say, wait a minute, you besmirched the guy's reputation for the rest of his career over some PSI in a football. When people will say, yeah, it's PSI in a football, but it could be more the process of what you went through to try and get that done.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
Major League Baseball on ESPN Radio. Last season, the Pirates reached the postseason for the second consecutive season, only to be sent home early after losing the wild card. Will they return for the third straight year? This weekend they face the Cubs, who have plans to make their first postseason berth since 2008. The Cubs and Pirates. The pregame at 3 Eastern, first pitch at 4. Saturday on ESPN Radio and the new ESPN app. The best of Mike and Mike.
So glad to have our Chauncey Billups in our studio to help us with it. Good morning, Chauncey. How are you?
What's up, man?
It's good to have you here. So much going on. Let's start with that game yesterday and LeBron James saying, I scratched the play. For those who've not yet heard, let me just play you the soundbite from LeBron.
To be honest, the play that was drawn up, I scratched it. And I just told Coach, just give me the ball. We either going to go in overtime or I'm going to win it for us. It was that simple.
Were you supposed to inbound on the original play?
I was supposed to take the ball out. I told Coach, there's no way I'm taking the ball out unless I could shoot it over the backboard and go in. So, I told him have somebody else take the ball out, give me the ball, and everybody get out the way.
All right, so LeBron scratches definitively scratches the play. There's a play called. He says, no, forget about that. Just get me the ball and get me out of the way. Chauncey, how many years did you play in the league?
I played 17 years in the league.
17 years. Did that ever happen in any huddle you were in? Did you ever see that happen? It did.
Absolutely.
Give me the circumstances.
There was one time we were playing in Chicago. We went at the end of the game. Coach Larry Brown. I'm with the Pistons.
Okay.
Larry Brown drew up a play for Rip. End of the game. We got a good look. Rip missed a shot. We go all the way through overtime, and he draws. We have 9 seconds in the game. He draws up the same play for Rip. And after the huddle was over, because I've done it before in the huddle and I've done it after the huddle. After the huddle, I huddled the guys up and I said, no, we're not running that play. Zipping me up to the top, everybody ISO. So I zip it up to the top, made a good play on Chris Duhon, win the game, boom. Now, Larry Brown was mad.
This was without Larry Brown in the huddle.
This is without him knowing.
Okay.
So he was surprised as everybody else was in the game.
Yeah.
But my guys on the floor was not surprised. Okay. Now this is without Coach Brown knowing, and we talked about it later. But there are times in games. This happens more often than you probably think. There are times in games that in the heat of the battle, I might see a little something here that Coach is not seeing, and vice versa sometimes. But the beauty of it is if you have that respect and the trust of that coach to say, okay, LeBron, go ahead. Now, it would have been a travesty to have him taking that ball out in that game last night with a second and a half left after getting a timeout that you didn't deserve, that you didn't have. I mean, that would have been tough.
So why didn't you say it in the huddle with Larry Brown there?
Because Larry Brown, me knowing Larry Brown, Larry would still make me run the play. And By the way, I would have still ran the play because I respect Coach Brown, and he is the coach. But I knew in that instance, I needed to change that. I huddled the guys up. I'm pretty sure he knew when I huddled the guys up. This guy's up for something.
He's not just being a cheerleader right now. Bear in mind, Larry Brown is a coach who's in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. There's a situation with David Blatt, where it's his first year coaching and LeBron under. I want to go back to what you said. It would have been a travesty for LeBron to inbound the ball in that circumstance. Why?
Because if you inbound the ball, it's a second and a half left. There's a great chance you don't get the ball back. And then even when you get it back, you're so rushed to just throw something up that, what kind of quality shot will you possibly get?
So I'm just trying to make I totally agree with you. I'm trying to think of the logic on the other side. He's your best passer. Maybe you're thinking, some sort of play going to the basket where he's going to throw a perfect lob or something like that. In my view, just having him on the floor, if nothing else as a decoy, is going to make a difference because he's going to draw so much attention. So I agree with you. I'm trying to think what the logic would be on the other side.
Well, I'm thinking if you're Coach Blatt, you're saying, he's a big guy, so they can't put a 7'6" guy in to block his view passing the ball, and he's your best playmaker. Now, if Kyrie Irving is having a great game, and you're drawing up a play for him to somehow get it to Kyrie, okay, maybe. But this guy is the one guy that's trying to will this game for us. Kyrie's down. Nobody else is really rolling. He has to be the guy touching the ball from the other side of inbounds.
So which to you is more egregious? That he would actually think of a play that would put LeBron passing the ball in, or trying to call a timeout he didn't have?
I'll tell you what, there's not been enough attention put on that. Coach Tyronn Lue over there may have saved the series, not the game, the series. The series.
Yeah.
And, Coach Blatt, I don't want to be too hard on the guy, but Coach Blatt, you got to understand, he's coming from certain different circumstances. Coaching overseas, timeouts are different. The game is different. The game is longer here. There's a lot of differences and changes that he's had to make. But when I seen Coach Tyronn Lue, he got up there and grabbed him like it was a kid running onto the street. He really did, man. And really, he probably saved the series.
Yeah, he did. He saves the season. The series and the season, they're one and the same. And as I said before, people don't let Chris Webber live that down 30 years later. He was 19 years old in college, and here's an NBA head coach. That said, Stephen A. Smith was opining earlier today, or actually yesterday, but we just played it earlier today, that he thinks that the series is over, that with that chance there for Chicago, they let it get away on their home floor, LeBron hits the dagger, that he thinks that was Chicago's best shot to win. What do you think?
I would have to agree with him, and I say that because on a night that if you're Chicago Bulls, on a night that you get a team to shoot 38% from the field, 20% from the three, they turn it over 15 times for only 16 assists, you hold them to a third quarter of 12 points. You have to win that game. There's no way you let that game get away from you. You have to win that game. You're at home. You have a chance to put this team in a stranglehold. You got a chance to put them in a chokehold.
The only reason I don't go that far is Chauncey, I don't know what's going on with the injuries. I don't know Kyrie's foot. I don't know Shumpert's groin. I don't know Paul Gasol may be back the next game, and those two guys from Cleveland may still be hurting.
But guess what we do know? They beat the Bulls with Kyrie going 2 for 10, LeBron going 10 for 30, and not even playing good. They still beat them in Chicago. That's what we do know.
They also know that Chicago also knows they won in Cleveland.
Sure, with Paul Gasol.
And he may be back.
And if he's back, that maybe changes things.
Yeah. And no J.R. Smith in that, for whatever it's worth. No J.R. Smith in that.
And that's a big deal.
He played great.
He was huge in that game, and that's what he can do. He can heat up and he can stretch the floor and he can make shots that a lot of players just can't make.
I picked Cleveland, and I'm trying to give reasons why Chicago can still be in the series.
They're still in it. Yeah, they're still in it now.
All right, we are Mike and Chauncey Billups in our studio telling great stories. If you were just with us a moment ago about just changing the play, Larry Brown. So take us inside the locker room now. You've changed the play. Larry Brown wants you to run a play. You've changed it on your own with your teammates. You make the shot, you win the game. Does Larry Brown walk up to you and say, "Good job, Chauncey, you navigated us to a win"?
He did not say, "Good job, Chauncey." And by the way, he was nodding his head in disgust all the way to the locker room while everybody else was cheering and going crazy. So he wasn't happy about it. But at the end of the day, you know, we did what we came to Chicago to do. We won the basketball game. But he was a little mad about it.
At what point, how long did it take for the smoothing over?
The next morning, we were all right.
You're all right then?
Yeah, we watched film, and I kind of told him what I was thinking. You know, I'm thinking the play that you drew up to win the game, we ran it perfectly and didn't win the game at the end of the game. Let's try something out. I got an advantage here.
Right.
Let's try something else. I kind of make big shots every now and then.
Right. What if it didn't work?
Give me a shot.
What would you have done then?
I wouldn't. There's nothing I can do. I would say, Coach, look, my bad, but the play that you had drew up didn't work anyway. So what's the difference? we don't lose. We're not losing the game. We're just going to a second overtime. We're not down one. We're tied up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't really lose us the game.
Yeah. Golic, does this happen in football? No. In football, there's more discussion on timeouts of plays and things like that. And then if you're a quarterback like a Peyton Manning or any of the
when Pete Carroll sends in a pass from the 1-yard line of the Super Bowl, does Russell Wilson have the option of saying, the heck with that, I'm giving the ball to beast mode?
I think Russell kind of played it out. I think a guy like Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Chauncey Billups is saying, beast mode getting the ball.
All right, we continue this in 10 seconds, Mike and Mike. We are Mike and Mike, and our Sports Center is brought to you by Lowe's, introducing the most legendary name in paint, HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams, now at Lowe's. Thanks to precision color, designer-inspired collections, and the long-lasting quality of HGTV Home by Sherwin-Williams, Lowe's is now your go-to destination for paint. Lowe's never stop improving. So much of the conversation this morning is about Chicago and Cleveland, thrilling finish yesterday, and all the different stuff. A couple other things I want to get to with you, Chauncey. And the first is Golden State. They didn't lose 3 straight games at any point this season. So history tells us they'll probably win tonight in Memphis and even up that series. If they don't, and if they should lose here, you know you're going to get the critics coming out of the woodwork, and Phil Jackson is already on Twitter trolling everybody, saying, hey, does someone have any analytics on how the three-point shooting teams are doing? That all those people have come out saying you cannot shoot your way from long distance to a championship. So I'll start by asking, do you think the Warriors are in trouble?
Yes, they are in trouble. And the reason why they're in trouble, Mike, is because it's a battle of attrition in this series. Memphis plays a playoff brand of basketball all year, every single night, and Golden State, who haven't been deep in the playoffs yet. They haven't been Western Conference Finals, have had a great season. And the reason why I thought that they were about there and ready because of their defense. In the playoffs, defense travels. Period. Defense travels. That jump shot, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. Hang your hat on the defensive end of the floor, and you have a chance. Memphis does that every night.
So what do you do if you're the best jump shooting team in the game? You have the best jump shooter in the game. This is how you make your bread, and it doesn't work. What happens? What do you do next year? I mean, you still have basically the same guys. How do you just hope you shoot better next year, or do you have to change your thought process?
You have to change a little bit. See, you at least need one guy that you can throw it to on the block when things aren't going well, and he can make plays for you. Not only to get a bucket, but, draw a defender, get other shots, get guys open shots. They don't have that guy. What they do have is fantastic in that backcourt, and they got other guys, a deep team, but they don't have that one guy you can throw the ball down there to, like you can do with Blake Griffin, like you can do with Zach or Marc Gasol, like you can do even with LeBron. You throw him in the block. You put him down there. They don't have that one guy that everybody else that are playing right now in the playoffs have.
Zach and Marc Gasol combined for 43 points in Game 3. Draymond Green and Andrew Bogut combined for 8. So they were outscored by 35 points in that matchup that you're talking about. Exactly. So we'll see what happens. We loved Paul Pierce. We loved the shot that he made. We love him saying, I call game.
Oh, that was great.
Is that the best immediate post-game quote you've ever heard?
Off the dome, too. Like, it was no script or nothing. That was great. He just thought about it like, no, I call game.
And then walked away.
And walked out.
He dropped the mic.
Off.
So sometimes what you say is as significant as what you do. Now, yours is a sport, Chauncey, where we've seen our share of guys willing to come out and make bold proclamations. Patrick Ewing used to do it all the time and then not win. And I think a lot of fans in New York, myself included at the time, were like, Patrick, stop guaranteeing you're going to win because you keep losing and it just sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now, we've seen it on the other side. Mark Messier, Joe Namath, we've seen guarantees. Alex Ovechkin, who was the star player on the Washington Capitals, has guaranteed that his team, which was up 3-1 and is now facing a Game 7 on the road, is guaranteed they're going to win. I asked Golic earlier, if you're a rank-and-file player on that team, he's your star, he's your superstar. He is Patrick Ewing. He's that guy on that team. If your superstar comes out and says, I guarantee we're going to win Game 7, does that do anything for the confidence of the other guys in that locker room?
Yes. And the reason why I say that is because it holds everybody accountable to, okay, if I make a guarantee, you better know damn well I'm going to do my part. I'm coming to work. I'm bringing my lunch pail. I'm not leaving out of this building with no stone unturned to win this basketball game, hockey match, football game, whatever it is. If your best player is making that commitment, everybody has to.
See, and I disagreed with that. I said, I don't think it makes a difference to a guy you've been in the locker room with for some people years, others at least a season, every single day. I already know the thought process that. Why? Because he says it publicly, am I going to think, oh, wait a minute, you mean he really wants to win? Or was he just BSing us in the locker room that he really didn't, but because he said it publicly? My thought is they all know they want to win, and they're all going to do everything. It's a Game 7. Who needs motivation for a game? Now, in my sport was different. There was one game. Yeah. If you're in a Game 7, do you need motivation? Would you need, now you were a star player, but would you need a star player guaranteeing a win? I just didn't see the connection.
Yeah, I don't think you need it. Anybody that needs some motivation in Game 7 shouldn't be there anyway.
Right.
But I just think if your star player steps out there and says, I guarantee you, we're going to win this game, we're going to win the series, it puts a lot of pressure on everybody, not just that star player, because it's not tennis, it's not golf, it's just not me against the guy in front of me. It's the team. So I think it just puts some pressure on the team to say, all right, now we put it out there. Mm-hmm. Now what are we going to do? So, I mean, I've been in a situation like that in Indiana when, Reggie Miller gets his shot blocked by Tayshaun. The time before that, the game before that, when we lost, Rasheed Wallace came out and guaranteed that we win the game. Now, so I know what that feels like to be in that locker room and a guy like Rasheed saying, I don't care what they did, I don't care what happened, we're going to win Game 5. Now, everybody's saying, we got to win Game 5. Even though we already knew, that's a big game for us. It adds a little something to it.
See, well, there you go. He agrees with you a little bit.
Right.
My thought
We're right, you're wrong.
My thought process would be, oh, man, you're going to look bad if we don't win.
All right.
That's true. That's true.
That's because Chauncey was a good teammate and you were a bad one. Two very quick things. We got to go. Chauncey, go to Sports Center. Two very quick things. The game last night's unwatchable. DeAndre Jordan goes to the foul line 28 times in the first half.
That's amazing.
What are we doing about this? What is the league doing about this for next year?
I'm pretty sure they'll do something. My stance has always been make free throws. Make free throws. As a fan, watching it from this side, I hate watching it. As a player, though, I'm going to do whatever I got to do to win that basketball game. And if you can't shoot free throws, it's no different than you being the worst three-point shooter on the floor. And when y'all throw it in, we're rotating all the good three-point shooters, and then we leave you. And you keep missing threes. What's the coach supposed to do? Take them out. So it's no different than that, but as a fan, I really hate watching it, man. I do.
So in the league's big picture for the good of the game, should they change that rule? Because I'm completely with you from the player side. I don't want to change a rule for a guy because he's inept at it. We're going to make him let him benefit. But for the league now. Now you're the commissioner and you say, you know what, we have to make this more palatable to our fans.
For the league and for the consumer, which is a big deal now in the game, I'm pretty sure they will make a change there because it's picking up too much steam. And it does. It makes the game longer, which cuts into, that's money. Right. If you got a certain block of time, that's money. And it's just not appealing as it should be. But as a player, I feel like I'm always going to be a player. Mm-hmm. I don't change that because if you can't shoot free, I'm going to foul you.
No, I get it. That's why they need to change the rule because I would do it too if I was the coach of the other team.
Sure.
They need to change the rule exactly for the reason you said because the fans, it just can't sit through it.
But in the first quarter,
it's awful.
8 minutes.
3 minutes, I think it's 3:40 into it. Unreal.
All right, real quick. The Basketball Power Index, our analytics people put together the Basketball Power Index. They look at all of the probabilities of all the different things that could happen based upon the circumstance. And of the 8 teams left, which do you think has the best chance to win the title?
What do I think they're saying?
Yeah. And we'll see if it's what you say.
I would probably say they're saying, with the way these rounds are going, Clippers, man.
That's exactly right. They give the Clippers almost a 41% chance of winning the championship.
Is it then Cleveland?
Next is Golden State still, and then Cleveland.
Still Golden State.
If you were right now, Chauncey, I know you wouldn't, but were to bet an amount of money that mattered to you on one team to win the title right now, it would be?
Memphis.
Yeah. Oh, I love the pick. You'll see Chauncey Billups all over SportsCenter and more all day long. Thank you, Chauncey.
Thanks, guys.
Great to see you.
I'm going to go bet an amount of money that matters.
Yeah, I'm going to go change the play and see if the coach yells at me.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
The game last night's unwatchable. DeAndre Jordan goes to the foul line 28 times in the first half.
That's amazing.
What are we doing about this?
I'm pretty sure they'll do something. My stance has always been make free throws. As a fan, watching it from this side, I hate watching it. As a player, though, I'm going to do whatever I got to do to win that basketball game. As a fan, I really hate watching it, man. I do.
That was Chauncey Billups in our studio a little while ago. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Joining us now, longtime player, longtime coach, and our very own NBA analyst, the great Mark Jackson, is on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Morning, Mark.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, fellas.
Always our pleasure. Quickly, and I apologize that I don't know it off the top of my head. When you were coaching, did you ever employ that? Did you ever use the Haka strategy?
Absolutely. Every time the opportunity presented itself and it worked to the benefit of, my staff and my team, I certainly did it.
Would you be in favor, because your partner in crime there, Jeff Van Gundy, is strongly against it, was on with us talking about it earlier today, would you be in favor of the league changing the rule so that coaches, understandably, are trying to win a game, coaches wouldn't have that option available to them?
I'm no surprise to you guys, Jeff and I disagree on this. And the reason why is I totally understand from a fan standpoint and watching the game is not attractive. So I understand that. But from a coaching standpoint or from a player standpoint, you're stripping away my ability to win a ball game. And you're making it easy for the guy that doesn't have the ability to knock down free throws. So I would say leave the rule as it is and allow me a weapon to win a ball game. Early in the season, Houston won a ball game against the Clippers in L.A., employing the Haka Jordan. So I think obviously it's not attractive, but to me, I would leave the rule as it is.
Yeah, I look at it from a former player as well, and I just have a hard time rewarding a guy for being inept at something by changing the rule so it doesn't affect him anymore. So we'll see where that goes. So now take us on the court, take us into the situation where LeBron James basically said, as he said, it scratched the play that David Blatt called. He was going to take.
Why don't we play it for those who didn't hear it? Let's play the soundbite for those who didn't hear LeBron James saying that basically he made the decision on the final play.
To be honest, the play that was drawn up, I scratched it, and I just told Coach, just give me the ball. We either going to go in overtime or I'm going to win it for us. It was that simple.
Were you supposed to inbound on the original play?
I was supposed to take the ball out. I told Coach, there's no way I'm taking the ball out unless I could shoot it over the backboard and go in. So I told him, have somebody else take the ball out, give me the ball, and everybody get out the way.
So he did that. We just had Chauncey Billups in here who said he scratched a play Larry Brown called, and it worked. So, Mark, from a player standpoint, when you were a player, were you ever, in a huddle where a player scratched the play a coach had, and then when you were a coach, did you have your play scratched by anybody?
Well, great question. I think more of it is made than it should be. It happens, more times than not. And not just a great player. It could be, your point guard, your floor general. It could be the guy on your team that, has the most invested and you respect the most as far as his IQ. They see more on the floor. I did it as a player. I watched other guys on my team do it as a player, and I did it as a coach. If I got a guy on my team that says, "Hey, coach," I want a guy to look at me and say, "Hey, coach, give me the rock. Let's go home and take care of this victory." I want a guy that has that attitude, that approach, and especially if he's the best player in the world. Now, what I cannot co-sign is having LeBron James take the basketball out in that situation. But I certainly understand the fact of LeBron James saying, "Hey, coach, scratch this play. Get me the ball. Let's get out of here."
Mike and Mark Jackson is with us. Yes, a lot of people very confused by that thinking. Let's go on the floor with this series. Again, the symbol of this series should be the Red Cross. Everyone is falling like flies. Everyone is hurt. And so the question becomes, in the absence of everyone coming back 100% healthy, as it sits right now, Stephen A. Smith was on saying he thinks it's over. He thinks the Bulls' chances of winning this series basically died with that dagger by LeBron at the end yesterday. What do you think?
I said that during the game. You know, when you look at LeBron tweak his ankle, when you look at Kyrie Irving damaged and hurting right now and battling through, foot injury, it was a golden opportunity for the Bulls to capitalize and take total control of the series. They allowed it to slip away. One thing I thought, okay, you cannot allow LeBron James to catch the basketball. I'd have probably had, 1.5, 2 guys on him. He got a great shot, good defense, he made it, but it was an opportunity for the Bulls to take control, and they blew it. So the frustrating part to me is, how do they bounce back? You got to get healthy, and I'm not going to count out a team that defends at a high level and has tremendous heart, that's extremely well coached. They're more than capable of winning this series, but it's going to be awfully tough.
Golden opportunity missed, but they have one in Cleveland, so we'll see what happens there. As far as one of the teams in the West, the favorite of Golden State, risking going down 3-1. We read the tweet from Phil Jackson questioning the outside shooting. And I asked this of Chauncey, and I'll ask this of you, Mark, forgetting if they get to the finals and lose. If Golden State loses this round, as the best shooting team in the league with the best shooter in the league, what does that do to that type of play, and will Golden State have to adjust to that?
Well, that play is not going to stop. I mean, they have two incredible all-time great shooters in Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. That's not going to stop. You can't all of a sudden switch everything. There's still going to be a jump shooting team. Obviously, they need somebody that can score on the block and make life a little bit easier for them on the post, get them easy baskets. It's a tough situation, but that team is more than capable of winning that series. I think that series is far from over. Memphis is a experienced, high-quality, tough physical basketball team, and it's a tough matchup. But that series is far from over, and I think, as usual, people overreact. At the end of the day, if the Golden State Warriors lose to the Memphis Grizzlies, they lost to a very good basketball team. And you can look for an excuse. You can look for a point to something. Well, give Memphis credit. Marc Gasol, Zach Randolph, Mike Conley, Courtney Lee, Tony Allen. I mean, this is a tough physical team that's well coached, and they're a dangerous team to match up against in the playoffs. Guess what? In 3 years, I believe my Golden State Warrior teams beat the Memphis Grizzlies 2 times. If you gave me a list of who to play in the playoffs for 3 years with a good basketball team, out of 30 teams, I would have said the least team I wanted to face was the Memphis Grizzlies, because they were that tough and they were that physical, and they somehow was able to take care of us.
Yeah, of course, Mark was there all those years in Golden State leading up to this. Final one for you, Mark, and this goes a little bit off of basketball in this instance, but we've certainly seen a lot of instances of players guaranteeing something. Patrick Ewing famously doing it, Mark Messier famously doing it, Joe Namath more famously maybe than anyone doing it. Alex Ovechkin of the Capitals, with his team having been up 3-1 in their series with the Rangers, now they've lost back-to-back games. They're going on the road for a Game 7. He is guaranteed a win. When a player in your locker room guarantees a win, and it's that public, it's on the back page of every newspaper and everything else, what does that do to everyone else in the room?
Well, I mean, it's a great question, and we've seen great players go out and do it, and Alex is no different. The best player on the team making a guarantee. It takes pressure off everybody else, and it motivates other guys. So there's no side of you as a teammate that's saying, man, why don't you just shut up? Actually, the side of you as a teammate is saying, yes, now let's go get his back and let's go handle our business. So what do you want him to say in those situations when the mic is put in front of his face and ask what's going to happen in Game 7? So I applaud it. You got nothing to lose. If you're Pat Ewing, you look back and say, it didn't work out. If you're Joe Namath, you're a hero in New York City and don't have to pick up a tab at any restaurant.
That's always a good plan. Mark Jackson, we so enjoy it all the time. Thanks for a few minutes this morning.
Thank you guys for having me. Keep up the great work.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNradio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, Mike Golic here, and I certainly love to fish. And when my dad took me out fishing for the first time when I was 6 and I caught that bluegill, I was so proud. Such a great memory, an experience everybody should have. Whether it's the first of the day or first of a lifetime, TakeMeFishing.org wants you to get out and make your first catch. And if you show them using hashtag #FirstCatchSweeps, you can win an Evinrude E-Tech G2 powered Ranger bass boat. Learn more at TakeMeFishing.org.
No purchase necessary. 48 U.S. and D.C. 18 and older. Ends 5/25/15. Void in Alaska, Hawaii, and where prohibited. See site for rules.
Two of baseball's best go head-to-head in interleague action when the Tigers head to St. Louis to face the Cardinals. That one is gone. The pregame at 7 Eastern, first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN and ESPN Radio.